We got a lot to talk about. Thomas Brown in as the interim head coach, but who will be the Chicago Bears head coach in 2025? It's CHGO Bears After Dark featuring Lance Briggs. Let's roll. Welcome back to CHGO Bears After Dark. We're back and better than ever on a Thursday night with our guy, Lance Briggs. That's right. Got the funky groove. Rocking and rolling here. Got the funky groove. It's a golden opportunity for Thomas Brown. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things, introducing some new segments here to the CHGO Bears After Dark program. So sit back, relax. Make sure you're hitting that like button while you're hanging out with us. Going to be getting Lance's thoughts on a lot of different things that have transpired here over the last few days since Matt Eberflus was shown the door and Thomas Brown is now the head coach and asserting himself on all three phases of Chicago Bears football. How you doing today, Lance?
Of the fire. Because the Thanksgiving game, it left a bad taste in a lot of Chicago Bear fans, in their mouths. And the timing of the firing, it was one of those deals where, as pissed off as all of us was about the game, the firing happened and it's like, I bet you it was just a sigh. I know it was a sigh of relief for me. And I'm sure it was a sigh of relief for most Bear fans. Okay, at least we can move on, knowing that we don't have to deal with this jerk off anymore.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I mean, and I think the players felt that, right? You had some articles come out as the days went on, and it sounded like Jaylon Johnson had some pretty strong words for Matt Eberflus as he came into the locker room, and it was kind of as Jaylon said it on his 6-7 the score hit, enough's enough. And so, I don't know if you've ever felt that way with a head coach or I mean, I know that, we've talked about the Mark Trestman era and then, certainly some ugly scenes in those locker rooms because I can remember some of the reporting back then with guys like Brandon Marshall shaking things up. So for you as somebody that has, I don't know, for me as a fan watching your career, I always felt like you were the type of guy that led by example, but that's not to say that maybe you didn't have a heat of the moment and passion, in a locker room after a game like that.
Yeah, it's football, and that's going to happen. It doesn't matter what coach, if you're competitive and you want to win, these things are going to happen. You have all these competitive guys that are locked into a room or in this organization, and everybody doesn't always see eye to eye. I didn't always see eye to eye on the things that we were doing, but I believed in what we were doing, for the most part, and when you get into what I learned when I got into a locker room once Lovey had left and I got into this locker room where it was run by Trestman, it's the same stuff, but now the way that everything is handled is different, So we're handling things internally because we thought that's the way you're supposed to do, but more things are now leaking out. More of what's happening behind closed doors is in the open. It's in the air, and somehow the outside knows more about what's happening, and it's causing more and more rifts. Oh, this player says this, coach believes this, and now the players, and he's shaking things up in the locker room, and I specifically remember a moment where before the first game, I walked up to Trustman and I said, "Hey, listen, Coach, I have a grand opening of a restaurant that I have out in Elk Grove in Sacramento." He was like, "I'd
Right.
like to." I asked him straight up. I said, "Hey, listen, I'd like to be there for the opening. We have a walkthrough practice with. We're not installing anything." The first thing I asked, I said, "Are we installing anything?" He said, "No, we're not installing anything today. There's not going to be an install. It's just going to be a basic practice." I said, "Okay, well, I'd like to go to Sacramento, go to Elk Grove, and go for the opening." And he said, "Lance, that's fine." Okay. If he just said, "Lance, no," I wouldn't have went. You know what I mean? Clear and simple. I wouldn't have gone. So I go. This becomes big news. This becomes big news. Oh, Lance defies the, whatever, and he just does his own thing and this and that. And on my way back in handling the situation, the higher ups, they kind of say, "Hey, this is what we want to put out there." And I'm like, "But that's not what happened." You know what I mean? And so I don't see how this gets better by trying to cover it up or trying to put a story out for people to respond to. To me, we're just starting to dig ourselves a deeper ditch. So why not just hang it on the truth? Just hang it on the truth. I came up. This is what I requested. You said okay, and I went and I came back. Listen, we didn't have anything installed that day. I allowed him to go out there, and he came back, and we moved on, and we ended up beating San Francisco. What is the big deal? Or I said he asked, I said no, and he didn't go. No, we're not even talking about it. But it became a big issue. But that's also because there's a lot of disarray within the locker room.
Well, and you're talking about trust, right? Trust with your organization and the messaging that's being put out there. Trust in your coach for having your back, because perception becomes reality, right?
Yep.
And then those news articles come out, and that was 15 years ago. So, I was at the tender age of 23, and and I may or may not have said some shit about Lance Briggs going out.
You did. I know you did. You should have come out there and had this,
Lance. And so, but when we don't have the full picture, and so that kind of goes back to, with guys like Jaylon Johnson, going on 670 every week, or guys like Mercedes Lewis, Kevin Byard, Cole Kmet here at CHGO Sports having their own podcast. And now we're in an era of social media where, players can set their own narrative and tell things for what they believe is the truth.
Yeah.
And so it's such a different landscape that teams have to kind of sift through. And now things come out about what's being said in leadership meetings, what's being said in a locker room after a loss. And so that's certainly something I want to ask you is, you come from a totally different generation in football, not too far away, but it's a different generation now. And so much is getting out to the media and fans, and we know what's going on behind the scenes more than we ever have before. And Thomas Brown comes to the podium on Monday, and one of my favorite things he said was, "My message to the team was family business is family business." And you come from those Lovie Smith locker rooms. So I'm curious your thoughts on how much we've learned from the locker room and how much these players need to tighten the bolt in that regard.
It's funny is that interesting enough, last year, a year ago, I coached freshman football here in Arizona. And it was a great bunch of kids, great bunch of boys, young men that can play really good football. But one of the things that they did, they're knuckleheads, and the knuckleheads would get into it. They'd have this argument, or this fight would happen, or, a bullying situation. And what this generation does that my generation did not, yours as well, they film everything, and so I'm getting out of whatever it is that I have to do, work or whatever it is. I get a text from the head coach who's saying, "Hey, have an issue," and I'm like, "Oh, what's going on?" We had a scuffle here, almost fight here, and a semi-bullying situation. I was like, well, we weren't sure about it, but the video just popped up, and we know everyone that's involved, and we know exactly the detail. In my head, I'm like, why are you filming all of this? You just incriminate yourself.
Right.
If it's all hearsay if you don't do that stuff, and we move on. A lot of times we move on, but now we know the details. We know who was involved. We know who was trying to break it up. So we can actually say, oh, hey, young man, good job. You were trying to break it up. You're out of here. You three, you guys are in the doghouse. It's that kind of deal.
Yep.
And so that transfers over into the NFL. When you say, man, this is house business is supposed to be house business, and too many leaks, too much of this, and now you have to defend your comments. It's gossipy. It's gossipy. And when you get caught up in gossip, you now find yourself in a backtracking, and your back's against the wall trying to defend comments that you may or may not have said. And you certainly didn't get a chance to create your own narrative and say it the way you'd like it to be said.
Loose lips sink ships.
Woo! Yes, they do.
That's what I said the other day. And as much as we all enjoy the access, and I said this to Cole face-to-face on our show the other day, like, as much as we all enjoy the access and the peek behind the curtain for a better understanding, just think from a fan's aspect of somebody that just wants what's best for the team and not what's best for CHGO or what's best for the fans. Like, what's best for the team is that they start keeping a lot of this stuff in-house. You can speak for yourself. When you start talking about, like Kevin Byard, I thought, after a leadership meeting after the Hail Mary, the Fail Mary against, Washington, the day after they have a leadership meeting, and Kevin Byard then does a radio hit and talks about what was said in that leadership meeting. I just think it spoke a lot to how little respect they had for Matt Eberflus. And I'm not saying he deserved it. He's all these decisions and these losses and this in the end of game situational breakdowns. This affects your guys' money. So I understand how personal everyone takes it, but you can't it's just making matters worse by putting all this stuff out there. But clearly the players have just kind of reached a point where, as Jaylon said on 670, enough's enough. And as you said, through all this, it is a sigh of relief. That's how you started off this show, by saying this is just a sigh of relief that we can move on from this, because every week we're not talking about the next game. We're talking about the last game. And when a team's in a playoff run, once you win that next game, or once you win that last game, you're immediately thinking about how you can beat the next team. And as a fan, that's what we're doing. We're like, okay, who do we got next? Who do we got next? Instead, it's all about, well, what happened last week? How did we screw up? So it's past time that this team and this organization and these players and coaches start looking forward as opposed to constantly looking at what happened.
Yeah. And it's so when I say it was a sigh of relief, unfortunately, quickly after comes a cloud of holy shit, what's going to happen next?
Right.
I guess in my positive thought, I really, really want Thomas Brown to surpass all expectations that the Bears brass is looking for, because by the talks, Poles is going to assist, Kevin Warren's going to lead it. To me, it makes me feel like we're going to go get the biggest, baddest, best CHGO Bear coach, and that scares me. I really hope that Thomas Brown handles what needs to be handled, and the Bears brass says, you know what, we don't need to look any further. The coaches love him. The players love him. They're going to fight for him. He knows what he's doing. Let's stick here and let's move forward. That is that's what I'm hoping for. That's my Christmas wish. Yeah, because we're in December, that's my Christmas wish.
Yep.
Because the way that we select, a way that we select in the past, regardless of if Kevin Warren, it doesn't put him in a category to make him special or anything like that, because he's with the Bears organization. And so what that means to me is I get worried about who gets picked next. I get worried about it.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna break some things down to you here after the break, where I ask you, what is the threshold for Thomas Brown to pass the test, and then maybe throw some different names at you that that the rumor mill is stirring now. Everybody's throwing their hat in the ring to want to be head coach of the Chicago Bears. But we'll talk about Thomas Brown. We'll talk about some of the different names being thrown out there after the break. But first, got to give a quick shout out to our guys over at Sunnyside. Appreciate our guys over at Sunnyside. They've been coming out to our tailgates here lately, and I know they've been enjoying their time there at the corner of Wabash and Cermak. So shout out to Sunnyside. Our friends at Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary are here to elevate your winter and keep you warm. Sunnyside is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping. They have a crazy selection with over 100 different strains to choose from with easy online ordering and in-store pickup. Stop in the store nearest you throughout Illinois for expert guidance from their staff or select from quality lines like Cresco or Floricol. Available now. Good news. New LTO, that's a limited time offer for Island Vibes, available in disposable vapes, 510 carts, and live resin gummies. They got it all. They're launching from right now all the way until December 31st. Cards redeemable until January 12th. So make sure you're checking them out. Sunnyside Scratch and Stash is back again this holiday season. Receive a scratch-off card every time you shop now throughout December 31st while supplies last. Every card is a winner. You can win big, like 50% off or even $100 off your next purchase. Hurry in to see what you win. Visit sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Enter the promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. Bright buys every day only for 21 or older or Illinois medical card holders. Also, of course, got to give a shout out to our guys over at Miller. Oh, you sound like a Gia monster there. Miller Lite. A lot's changed over the years. One thing that hasn't, the great taste of Miller Lite. Another thing that hasn't changed is that it's less filling. So what is the best thing about original light beer? Well, Miller Lite sparked this debate in 1975, and we still haven't settled it. Great taste or less filling. Miller Lite keeps it simple, undebatable quality, great taste, only 96 calories. Miller Lite is the official beer of the Chicago Bears. You don't have to choose what's best. Miller Lite has great taste and is less filling. Tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/CHGO football, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer. Make sure you go get yourself some Miller Lite. Love it. Love it. We're rolling along here on CHGO Bears After Dark. Make sure you hit the like button for our guy Lance Briggs and subscribe to the channel as well here at CHGO Sports. We do live pre- and post-game shows every single game day. And then we also, of course, have shows Monday through Thursday, all the way through the offseason. We'll have you set for who will be the next Chicago Bears head coach. So let's get right into that right now as I teed it up before the break. How can Thomas Brown pass this test? You say you're rooting for him. I think the players are going to certainly play hard for him. You're starting to see a groundswell for fans that are starting to already get in his corner because, hey, going from Matt Eberflus to Thomas Brown is a breath of fresh air. But how can Thomas Brown meet the criteria to the organization to become the head coach in 2025 in your eyes? What are the boxes he has to check here in these last 5 games?
Well, number one is the one that he's already doing. He's got the offense trending in the right direction. The offenses, they're moving the ball. They're not only putting up yards, but they're also putting up points. They've been putting up points ever since he's taken over. And so that's number one. Number two, hopefully next week, the Bears are in a close game in the end, or there are situations throughout the game, whether it be in the end of the half, end of the game, but these situations that call for maybe a challenge flag needs to be thrown out. Okay, let us all look at the play and say, okay, this should be challenged. Not because it's an explosive play, but because it's a winnable play and it makes sense for us to throw the flag. All right. Honestly, he needs to, if he throws out a flag, he needs to win it. All right. You need to win it. That would rub us all the right way. That would tell us, okay, hell yes, finally, because hell, Lovey wasn't even good at doing a challenge flag. He wasn't that doggone good at it. We didn't win it often.
Right.
You know, Mike McCarthy won it all the freaking time somehow. I don't know how. But let's not forget about Caleb. Let's not forget about the development of the quarterback that says, hey, I really like being around this guy. I really like this guy as our coach. So you put all of those things in together, make sure that he's ready for every situation and he knows that every situation counts, okay? Because it does in the NFL. And it could be the difference between you winning or losing a game. And when we see that, we will know that. And on top of that, and the other thing, there's one more thing. How is he received in the locker room? You can tell how a coach is received when you have players that don't go up and say, hey, listen, I walked up to the coach and I said, hey, this is how we would have handled it in Tennessee. This is how we would have handled the play before the Hail Mary. Yep. We feel like the players did everything they did within their power to win the game. So let's see a different tone. If we see a different tone from the players, we know how they're being received by the coach. This is a possibility for it to be home for Thomas Brown.
No question about it. I mean, you've heard from Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Cole on our shows talk about Thomas Brown and his impact he's made on the offense over the last few weeks. But you've already heard from guys like, TJ Edwards talk about the impact he's already making on defense of saying this is how we're going to play football, right? And he said on Monday, Thomas Brown, that, you are rewarded by playing violent in the NFL. And I don't think we've seen enough violence here, especially over this 6-game losing streak. So I think he is already making an impact in the locker room. And then when you talk about like the offense, the stats are there as well. It's not just words. Keenan Allen and DJ Moore in their last 3 games with Thomas Brown. Keenan Allen has 31 targets on 18 receptions, 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. DJ Moore with 30 targets, 22 receptions on 265 yards and 2 touchdowns. So it can't just be words. It's got to be productivity. It's got to be results.
I'm glad you said that, Braggs, because the thing I really like about that comment, about being rewarded for your violence, I wish that I would have rather have heard that after watching the Bears go out and be violent on the field, this week, next week, and see them get back to playing the way that they know how to play, and then say, hey, listen, one of the first things our coach said was, we get rewarded for violence, and that way the action had already spoken. And so all the words does is confirm what we're seeing on the field.
Yep. No question about it. So do you put an exact win-loss total is there a minimum? Because I feel like he can't go 2-3. Like, I think he has to show consistency. He's got to show that the locker room comes together. He's got to be able to understand those situational moments, call the timeouts when they're needed. Don't mess up a challenge, those little boxes. But I also feel like the winning culture is also very important. And it might be an unfair thing to him because he's adopting this end of the season when this isn't his coaching staff. This wasn't his plan going into the year. But fair or not, I feel like there has to be some sort of win-loss threshold. And I think 3 wins minimum. I don't think it's completely unfair to say, like, hey, you do this and you're in the conversation. You go 1-4, 0-5. To me, I don't know if that's enough with, if you also add in everything he's doing, from a locker standpoint.
Number 1, beat the Packers. Beat the Packers the next opportunity that you play them. Okay. You will win over a lot of people by beating the team up the street. We've had an opportunity to beat the other teams in our conference. So beat one of them. beat one of them, if not all of them, split the series, and I'll tell you what, that will carry a lot of weight when it comes to decision making at the end of this year. We have a tough one against San Francisco. They're not unbeatable. They're a very different team than they were last year. And Chris McCaffrey's out again. He's done again. And so it really puts them back to that San Francisco team that has struggled, throughout the year. So make a mark. Send a message this week and continue to show the change that you guys want. If you really want this coach as players,
right,
then go out and earn him, and you'll get him. If you don't earn him, you won't get him. You won't get him. You won't even have the chance to get him. So at least put forth the resume that you need to say, hey, we want this guy to be our coach, and if he is, we're going to continue to trend this way.
It's well said. It's well said, because I definitely think the players are already in his corner, but as you said, it's about the results. So they got to have their coaches back. Coach got to have their back. They got to stay connected. A lot of Thomas Brown's message on Monday was unify. So they got to come together here. All right. Well, that being said, I'm going to introduce a new segment here to the program. We're going to call it the 5 for 55. And so each week we're going to come up with 5 different things that you'll have 55 seconds to talk about. And we'll have different topics every week. But obviously the main topic of discussion this week is about who will be the Bears head coach in 2025. And there's been a lot of rumors Sunday. As soon as Matt Eberflus, the body wasn't even cold yet, with all due respect. And people were already lining up for his job and throwing their hat in the ring Sunday morning. And, you're hearing, a lot of different reasons. You hear names get thrown out there. Agents want their coach's name out there. Teams are going to leverage different ways because they're playing a staring contest with somebody else for money. There's just a lot of different variables that you have to consider when names are being attached to different teams with rumors. That being said, I'm going to throw 5 different coaches' names at you, and I just want your instant reaction to each of them. We'll dive deeper into who each guy is as this process goes along, but just your instant reaction, what you know about them, your gut instinct on if they would be a fit. And we've got a clock that will show us the 55 seconds to keep us time on task. So we'll start with the hot name for all Bears fans, the sexy X's and O's offensive guy, Ben Johnson out of Detroit. Doing a lot of great things. They just set a record for most passing yards in a game, most total yards in a game, most completions in a game. So 55 seconds on Ben Johnson. Fire away, Lance Briggs.
Okay, Ben Johnson, I really like the guy. I really love what he's done with the offense. I mean, he gets under center. It's what he runs offensively would make me overjoyed in Chicago because they're running downhill. But remember, that is the Detroit Lions personnel, not Chicago.
Yep, no question about it. Now, how worried about the buzzword leader of men? Can Ben Johnson be a leader of men? He's watching Dan Campbell, the ultimate leader of men in the NFL now. But do you believe that Ben Johnson can be a leader of men?
Again, he's under Dan Campbell's staff. So does that mean that he's the leader of men, or is he the analytical guy? To me, most offensive guys are the analytical guy, and they just so happen to have a great combination of both with him and Dan Campbell.
There it is. And the clock has run out on Ben Johnson for now, but I'm sure he'll have more time to have his say as the next Bears head coach. Next name I'm going to throw at you is somebody that is connected with Caleb Williams, and that is one Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator right now with the Washington Commanders, certainly having Jaden Daniels do some great things, former head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, and, was shown the door eventually as he was trying to get Kyler Murray going. So 55 seconds on Cliff Kingsbury.
Listen, I like where Cliff Kingsbury is right now. I think he thrives at the OC position. The familiarity with Caleb is awesome. Like that as well. I just don't see him as the head coach. Now, maybe he's learned from being in Arizona. I didn't think that he had earned that Arizona job. I thought it was kind of laid out for him. But at the same time, he does really do well with these quarterbacks. He's an analytical guy, and we have done enough of those. We don't need any more analytical guys.
Right. And he's, he didn't directly coach Caleb Williams. Is there any concern that from a team standpoint, you bring in somebody that kind of is perceived as Caleb's guy and only Caleb's guy?
Listen, I'm going to say it just like this. Braggs, we don't need any more soft shit in Chicago.
All right. Well said. Well said. All right. 55 seconds have run out on Cliff Kingsbury. This is the 5 for 55. We're going to get on to the next name. As we talk about leader of men, program builders, this is where we start to go down the road of some guys that have had success in the NFL. And this next name is an interesting one. Former head coach from the Tennessee Titans, Mike Vrabel. Your thoughts? Hey, former linebacker, comes from the Patriots way, gets some success in Tennessee. Now he's right now a consultant for the Cleveland Browns, but fully available to be hired here. 55 seconds for Mike Vrabel.
I like Mike Vrabel. I like the culture that he comes from. I like what he stands for. The thing about the Belichick tree, is that it doesn't have a high rate of success. It doesn't. You know what I mean? There's a ton of coaches that come from the Belichick tree, and a lot of them end up coming back to Belichick and hanging back onto that tree. Okay? Love Belichick. I love their culture. Not saying that that Vrabel wouldn't install the right culture. He's also going to install a different defense, so you're going to have to get the personnel in time for that.
Yeah, it'll certainly be interesting. I mean, this leader of men buzzword has Bears fans extremely triggered. I think they want somebody that's, going to make sure Caleb Williams is the right guy as the 55 seconds run out for Mike Vrabel. Well, you bring up the Bill Belichick tree, so let's get right into it. Man that needs no introduction here in this segment of the 5 for 55. Bill Belichick, the idea of Bill Belichick being the head coach of the Chicago Bears, 55 seconds.
Listen, if you're going to talk about culture and you're going to talk about the tree, and I just talked about the guys that fall from the tree and the percentage success percentage as a head coach, but the guy that's at the top of that tree, Bill Belichick, I really do like it. If you're going to change and go move to a 3-4 defense, at least do it with the guy that culturally knows how to get it done, and he will lead that room, have the respect of those players. You've seen how he has played with, has coached with Tom Brady. So that could work. That could certainly work. At his age, I don't know. There are still some question marks. Is he out of touch? Or certain things that Bill Belichick at, I don't know, 78, whatever he's at, can he still get it done in the NFL as a Chicago head coach?
72 years old for Bill Belichick. Certainly a question at hand. But you know what? He's on the Pat McAfee show. He seems kind of lively. We'll have plenty of time to talk about Bill Belichick. I've been triggering Bears fans because I've been advocating for somebody like that. I think that is exactly the right medicine that Hallis Hall needs, not just Caleb, not just the team, the coaches, the organization, the front office. George McCaskey could use a guy like Bill Belichick in that room because there hasn't been enough serious football people. But this isn't my 55 seconds. Yeah. This is the 5 for 55 with Lance Briggs. Final name to come across the waiver wire on Sunday. The one that caught the most heat was a lot of insiders, including our one very own Adam Hogue, was the first to mention his name as somebody that is being reportedly considered by the Chicago Bears. The head coach of Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Marcus Freeman, a young 38-year-old guy that is described as a leader of men at the college level. 55 seconds on Marcus Freeman of Notre Dame.
Okay, so we're going to talk about my young roommate, or not roommate, my linebacker mate that was drafted to the Bears back in, I think, 2009, maybe, maybe around the same time as Poles, and Poles at the same time. Listen, I've heard great things about him at Notre Dame. And as a linebacker, a former linebacker, of course, I'm partial, I just don't know if this is the move just yet. I don't know if this is the move just yet. I'm surprised that the name Dave Tobe wasn't brought up. I'm surprised that that's not a part of the 555. I love Marcus Freeman. I think he's doing a wonderful job at Notre Dame. And the next stop for him, maybe down the road, maybe be a good fit for Chicago. I'm just not sure just yet.
Interesting stuff here for our first ever run at the 5 for 55. And we'll have a lot more time to discuss all the different head coaching options. And I'd love to talk about Dave Tobe as somebody that I used to advocate for. Every year at training camp, I would yell as Dave Tobe was walking down the line as I was chasing you guys around to try to get autographs from. Dave would be walking by, and I'd always offer him my services as his agent to get him to be a head coach in the NFL, because he did some amazing things for the Chicago Bears as their special teams coach, and he continues to do so for the Kansas City Chiefs. He flat out got them a win here earlier this year against the Denver Broncos through his preparation and the attention to detail and research that he does on teams.
Braggs, other than all the items that I signed for you when I was in training camp, when we were both in training camp, the other special teams coach, you know who the other special teams head coach is in the NFL right now?
John Harbaugh.
John Harbaugh. All right. We talk about a defense and a team that sticks to running and the culture of getting to the playoffs, playing in championship games. Okay. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, you don't see too many special teams coaches get the opportunity to throw their hat in the ring much anymore. But, I guess the one thing you have to consider, I think they all understand the operation of a team because they have to pay attention to both sides of the ball and be ready to kick a field goal or punt or onside kick. Those are all things that affect both sides of the ball. And from a personnel standpoint, they work with both offensive and defensive players on special teams.
There's balance.
Yeah, there's a balance there. And so everybody's always looking defense, everybody's always looking offense, but very rarely are the special teams coaches considered. And to your point, John Harbaugh's done a fantastic job in his own right in Baltimore. As I said, we're going to have 2 months to really dive through this. I think it's interesting that you played alongside for a short period of time with Marcus Freeman as he came out of Ohio State and was at training camp with the Chicago Bears. So it'll be interesting to, as the college football playoff gets underway here in a couple weeks, maybe we can have a little more of a deeper Marcus Freeman discussion, even though I think most of us don't think he's a legitimate option.
Young coaches scare me, Braggs.
Yep. And I don't blame you there. I certainly want to continue to pick your brain as we go down this road. I'm a big Bill Belichick advocate. There's a lot of fans that literally want to throw me into Lake Michigan for suggesting we bring in one of the greatest coaches in NFL history or in sports history. Forgive me, Bears fans, how stupid of me. But you played against Bill Belichick and you saw how those teams were prepared. So I think that's a conversation for another day because I kind of want those conversations to be stretched out a little further. And we're going to have 2 months to talk about it so we don't have to beat our head against the wall today. And as you said, I think at this point we're all rooting for Thomas Brown. He's still got his first game to coach as the head coach here against the San Francisco 49ers. And we'll get into a Bears 49ers preview here in just a little bit. But first, we talked at the beginning of the show about Jaylon Johnson and, how emotional he was after the game and how hard he was on Matt Eberflus. And then he came on 670 The Score on Monday and had a lot of different things to say. Was very open about what he said in the locker room on Thursday, after the loss on Thanksgiving to the Lions. Then he also brought up something that I certainly wanted to get your perspective on. And the quote is, and I'll just read the quote and lay it out to you, and then we can see what your thoughts are. But Jaylon said on 670 The Score, seeing so many black coaches in a position of power, it's more than just being a black person in a position of power. Looking at the building, looking at your roster, and just having a predominantly black-dominated team, I think that goes throughout the NFL. It's a certain level of relatability, especially for your head coach, for your president, to be able to lead teams that are predominantly black. Once again, that's a quote here from Jaylon Johnson via 670 The Score. And I certainly wanted to get your perspective on that. He's talking about relatability. He's talking about, the players in that locker room and being able to identify with the people that are above them, whether it's the GM, the head coach, the president. Because right now with the Chicago Bears, you have a black president, a black GM, a black assistant GM, a black head coach, a black quarterback. And so in your days, like, I don't know if that's ever happened in the history of the NFL. You played for the Chicago Bears. You played under Lovie Smith. And so I'm curious to see what your what your thoughts are off of what Jaylon said and your own experience and perception of what Jaylon's trying to say there.
Yeah. So when you talk about relatability, you're in a sport that's predominantly black, but for most of our careers, our head coaches, our DCs were white, and so there is a level when you think about a guy that is in the president's spot or in the GM spot or both, and you have a head coach that's black. There are experiences that they are going to be able to relate with you. That's different than, if I'm talking with Cliff Stein, or whomever else might be up there that's non-black. There's just certain things that he may understand about our path or our road to get here that others may not. And in this sport, it's a little like if we're playing hockey and hockey is predominantly white, and I know that the GM and everybody, and I just happen to be I'm the token black guy. There's not a lot of black guys here. I get it. I get it. In basketball, you want to see a lot more familiarity. You want to see international guys. But there's a lot of black guys in NBA as well. So you want to see a good mixture of whatever's going on. I'm sure that there's so many international guys. They want to have got somebody they can communicate with, for a lot of that stuff. So it goes hand in hand with the NFL. I was part of the first Super Bowl that was led by two black head coaches. Yep. That was in 2006. Well, it was 2006 season. It was in 2007. So we had gone that many years in the NFL, prior to me playing in the Super Bowl, that we had never had two black head coaches. So there's definitely a change in things. You're seeing a lot more black quarterbacks now, and there's this move to just having pocket passers to the dual threat runners, and we finally, after 30 years, Braggs, we finally have white cornerbacks. We got white cornerbacks, man. That is more monumental probably than most of these moves that we're talking about. We have white cornerbacks. It's unheard of. When I played, we would always break down play around in our defense. We'd say, hey, who's the best white DB, in the league? And we were like, well, there's no corners. And I remember I was asking, I'm like, there's not one white corner in the league. Now we have two that are making a name for themselves right now in the league, and I'm sure that trend is going to continue to change and move in that direction. But familiarity is important.
Yeah, Cooper DeJean, he's doing it up for the Eagles. They got a couple guys, right?
There's a couple.
And they're making a mark. What was it? Jason Sehorn.
Jason Sehorn was the last big name.
Yeah,
the last big
Jason
name.
Sehorn holding his own, holding on for dear life for representation from our community in the secondary. No, but it's a real thing, and I think it's something that some people will try. It's a heavy topic, obviously, and something that some people might try to strive away from. But Jaylon Johnson speaking honestly about it. It's okay to say those things. I can remember when the Bears drafted Justin Fields and Eddie Jackson was live on Instagram and he was excited. And the first thing he yelled was, "We got a black quarterback," and like for some fans, like there was probably going to be people that watch the show that would be like, why are you talking about this? But it resonates. You have to understand that there's people that they want to be able to identify with who they see on TV. And there's, like you've talked about, the barriers that broke from when Tony Dungy and Lovie Smith faced off in the Super Bowl, first time two black head coaches, and you seeing the stigmatism of of black quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson, should have been the number one pick. How many? He's got 2 MVPs. He's about to win a third, right? And people tried to make him a wide receiver because of the connotation attached to what his ability would be able to be under center because of the traditional way quarterback is played. I think from your perspective, like you went from Dick Duran, right, to Lovie Smith and then back to Mark Trestman. And I don't think anybody's sitting here saying that white coaches are incapable of relating with a locker room. I think, there's
that's not it.
Look at Bill Belichick, as you just said. You'd love to play for a guy like Bill Belichick because at the end of the day, it's about results. But there is a factor to consider when it comes to relatability as well.
Absolutely. Sure. You heard Greg Popovich when the big discussion about parents and talking to their kids about how they need to handle police, on the street. And Greg Popovich, he's like, listen, I never told my kids that there was a protocol that you had to go through. That's just something I never had to do for my kids, and so that's something that if I'm playing for, or when I was playing for Lovey, I can go into that conversation with Lovey, and I know that he knows that we've been through that, and we can have that conversation because it's that's part of our culture. That's been part of our culture. You know what I mean? So when you talk about relatability, me and Lovey, we could relate on that on that same wavelength. And I couldn't have done that with Dick Duran. I couldn't have done that with Mark Trestman. And so it doesn't mean that they're better or worse coaches. A good coach is a good coach. But there is a relatability to a Lovey as opposed to the other two.
Yeah, for sure. So, from your standpoint, to put a bow on this subject, but like you talked about Tony Dungy and Lovey's facing off, and I'm sure that had an impact on you playing in that game, lining up for the national anthem in that moment, and both coaches are standing on each sideline. But now fast forward to where the organization currently stands with Kevin Warren, Ryan Poles, Ian Cunningham, and now Thomas Brown and Caleb Williams, being the top dogs in this organization, from your standpoint, from an identity, identifiable relatability standpoint, like how much does that mean to you? Is that something that like has an impact on your perception of where the franchise is or where the NFL is going?
This is what I think about this. I love what's happening right now, and I want the success to happen. There are a lot of communities in the state of Illinois. There are a ton of young Black males and girls that are in the West South Side. These poor communities that have someone they can really look up to that's right there in Chicago. I hope that from Kevin Warren all the way down to Caleb can inspire these kids and help these communities to know that there are other options, because I know as well as that the city versus the Catholic system, educationally wise, the city system sucks.
Yep.
It does. And whatever we need to do to fix all of that, or to give these kids an opportunity, give these kids something to look forward to, it's one small step by them looking up and being like, whoa, he's not a football player, but he's part of it. Oh, he's okay, well, how do I get here? And what do I have to do to get here? So in a small way, but a really big way, it's really beneficial, not just for the state of Illinois and Chicago, but for those outside to see it.
Yeah, for sure. There's plenty of organizations out there that are trying to do right by the city. Somebody that I've been attached to with different work over the last few years with Bernie's Book Bank is somebody that provides books to kids in Chicago that don't have access to, books or even Wi-Fi. They help try to provide Wi-Fi because a lot of homework that's being done is online predominantly now. So, there's different avenues you can look through to try to, be the help that, the city and different people need across the area. And I'm sure the Chicago Bears are doing everything they can in their own right. I think Andrew Billings just got announced today as the Walter Payton of the Year candidate. So, that's always a very special award, and it's named after somebody that had a huge impact here in this city. So appreciate you giving your insight on that. Obviously a heavy topic, but something that, I don't think needs to be shied away from. And when Jaylon Johnson had those words on 670, the score the other day, I thought that was a pretty powerful statement and something that, at least can be brought into the discussion. So with that being said, let's look ahead now here to the San Francisco 49ers and get into our Bears 49ers preview. I've been doing everything I can here for the last month, Lance, to get Kyle Shanahan fired by San Francisco. I've been dressing up as a San Fran fan and going on the air and putting on a fake mustache and pretending like I'm a Niners fan because I'm just trying to have as many good options at our disposal. Well, we can talk about Kyle Shanahan as an option for day, but the 49ers are nosediving at this point. They've had a bunch of injuries. They lost Brandon Ayuk. Their quarterback, Brock Purdy at one point was injured. He comes back last week, and they're playing in the snow in Buffalo, and Buffalo beats the brakes off of them. And so you got two teams that are going the wrong direction, and the Bears have lost 6 in a row. The Niners are reeling. This is a spot that they're not necessarily used to, and now they face off heading to San Francisco for a mid-afternoon showdown. And I just am curious to hear your thoughts on Thomas Brown's first opportunity to get a win as the head coach here in the National Football League.
Listen, Braggs, I grew up in California, and probably one of the worst things that you could do to me as a football player, is say, hey, listen, in December you're going to be playing in Buffalo, okay? And then to get the weather report leading up to the game and them showing the pictures of everybody, shoveling stuff all throughout the stadium, that's a different type of experience. So I don't think a lot of people expect the Niners to go all the way over to Buffalo and win that game. We're going to do it, but at 5-7, the 49ers are a beatable team. All right. They have been bit by injuries, and unfortunately they were in the Super Bowl last year. They were in it. They were actually in it. So they're not going to get rid of Shanahan. No matter how many costumes you dress up in. But with that being said, they are ripe. I'd say ripe for the taking. If there was ever an opportunity to knock off a team that has been of high caliber over the last, really kind of the decade, it would be this week. That would be a great signature start and win for Thomas Brown if he can get his guys wound up, prepped, and ready. And I believe that this Bears team this week, if prepared correctly and ready to go, can beat this Niners team. I think we all believe that.
Yeah, well, and you have the injury report come out, and Christian McCaffrey is somebody that won't play in this game, and their backup running back behind him is also injured. So there's a lot of different people. I think this was the injury report on Wednesday. Nick Bosa did not practice. Let me just try to make sure I get all this right. Nick Bosa did not practice. Jordan Mason, the backup running back to Christian McCaffrey, did not practice with an ankle. Christian McCaffrey's out for the season. Dre Greenlaw, limited practice. So there's a lot of different names. I mean, there's literally like 13 names here on this list, and it goes all the way across linebackers, tackles, DBs, running backs, you name it. So even Brock Purdy, was limited, or no, he was full practice, I should say.
Full practice, yeah.
He is going with playing with a right shoulder injury that he's dealing with, but he was able to make it through a tough game in the snow. So, to your point, they're certainly reeling and ripe for the taking. How much do you think, like you saw that boost of energy from the Chicago Bears offense when Shane Waldron was let go 3 games ago after the Patriots game? Do you think that same energy boost is going to be felt across all 3 phases, defense and special teams, with Thomas Brown as the lead guy on the sidelines and the head coach. Because let's face it, the defense and special teams, especially over the last 3 weeks and the last 6 games, has been pretty bad.
Well, listen, it'll be clear. It'll be clear to us how these players in 2024 feel about Thomas Brown. If they are excited about him, Braggs, if they're excited about this coach, if they want this coach to be here, then they're going to come out fired up. They're going to be on firing on all cylinders. Defense is going to be flying around, making plays, getting off on third down, taking the ball away, and keeping that score below 20. Offensively, they're going to be putting up the amount of points they've been putting up the last few weeks, anywhere from 26 to 29 or even to 30, as much as 30. You know what I mean? And that, to me, says that this team wants to be here. We will see that out there. We will see them not kick field goals from the left hash. You know what I mean? We're going to see them put effort into kicking it from the right hash because that's what they do. That's what they're supposed to be doing. We'll see them when they take their interviews that they're not making excuses. All right. If you made a bad call, I made a bad call here. You know what I mean? I wish I could get that play back. You know, on this play, I made a good call. You know, one good call was followed by a bad one. This happens in the NFL. We're human.
Yep. And we'll wait on the injury report from the Bears here today. Or obviously this program will be played here later tonight on Thursday, so the injury report will already be out. But the Wednesday injury report was to kind of keep us on task here. But Keenan Allen did not practice for the Bears. You talk about the 49ers being injured, but Keenan Allen did not practice with an ankle. Ryan Bates with a concussion. Elijah Hicks with an ankle. Roshan Johnson with a concussion. DJ Moore and DeAndre Swift both did not practice with quad injuries. And then limited was Kevin Byard with a shoulder, Coleman Shelton with a knee, and Darnell Wright actually was limited with a knee, and it looked like maybe his season potentially could have been done here on Thursday because he came off the field limping pretty bad. So to see that Darnell Wright is limited is actually kind of encouraging, but the rest of that injury report is pretty ugly.
This time of year, that's going to happen. You know, you're going to have a lot of guys that are banged up, a lot of guys at this point. And so the good thing for Darnell Wright is he's got young knees. Okay, he's got young knees. Those young knees are going to heal. And a lot of these guys have to get rest during the week. And you'll see by the end of the week, whether it be Friday or Saturday, if they're limited, at the very least limited practice, then they're going to be playing.
Well, as Bane once said on The Dark Knight Rises, darkness, they might think darkness is their alley, but we were born in the darkness.
I was born of this. Yes.
You
go to the dark.
Molded by it.
Yeah.
Bears fans and Bears players, we're used to this spot that we're currently in, but I don't know if the Niners can live in the dark the way we've been doing here for too long, to be quite honest with you. And so I do think that there's a good chance that the Bears are going to be coming out with a different sense of urgency than the Niners are when you look at where the two franchises are at right now. And I think the team rallying behind Thomas Brown, certainly I think these players are going to have a chip on their shoulder to kind of show like, hey, now that some of the people that we thought were hey, you can't sit here and say Shane and Matt Eberflus were the problem and then go out there and lay an egg on Sunday against the 49ers. Fair or not? You can't. Absolutely. You can't say all this stuff in the media and say what you're saying in the locker room, and it comes out like you got to back it up now. And the offense, I think, showed like, hey, see, this was the reason Shane Waldron was shown the door. Look how much better we've been playing since. And now I think as a team, they need to show that, 100% Matt Eberflus's firing was justified.
Yes.
But it's just bad optics if you go out there and lay an egg on Sunday after all the heat that Eberflus, rightfully so, was taking.
I like the analogy you were just using about the difference between the Bears being in the dark and the Niners not understanding it. I see it more like trading places. And the Bears are Billy Ray Valentine, and the Niners are Mortimer, you know what I mean? And Mortimer doesn't know how to handle it. You know what I mean? Billy Ray, listen, we've been here. All right, we've been here. We know how to hustle. Just give us a little bit Just give us a little bit right there, all right? And you'll see us on top, okay?
Oh, yeah, that's what we're doing. We're always giving you something here on CHGO Bears After Dark. We appreciate everybody that tunes in. Hey, make sure you become a diehard here at CHGO Bears After Dark all day long. We appreciate every single one of you. And if you're tuned in, on YouTube, hit that like button.
Hit that like button.
And if you're not, you can always watch later. If you're watching we're on Roku, Lance, we're on Xfinity, we're on all sorts of different outlets now. So you never know where you're going to find us in our programming here with CHGO Bears and CHGO Sports. So make sure you become a diehard and go to allchgo.com/diehard to sign up. So I think that wraps things up here for tonight.
I'm so tired right now.
Yes.
Oh, Lord.
Yes, Thursday Night Football is currently or Thursday Night Football is about to get underway here shortly, as this program is being recorded, is being played at 6 p.m. I'll get this right eventually. But we've got the Lions and the Packers playing here tonight. So as soon as this show's done, you can head over to Lions Packers. Who do you got in that game, Lance?
Lions Packers. Come on now. Hey, I got the Lions.
The Lions.
The Ben Johnson led Lions.
Yes, never root for Green Bay. That's the correct answer. All right. Well, anything else you got for us before we call this thing a night?
Hey, listen, looking forward to seeing how these Bears come out. If they come out how we all believe they are, then they're going to make a statement and they're going to get this W. Go Bears.
That's right. Hit that like button on your way out. As always, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We are live after every single game, pregame and postgame, coming up on Sunday for Bears 49ers. And then, of course, me and Lance Briggs will be ready for you after you get 2 postgame shows here at CHGO Bears. We never stop the content always rolling to keep you Bears fans engaged. So we appreciate everybody. Hey, 6-game losing streak ain't easy, but Thomas Brown, Caleb Williams, better days ahead. So
change is coming.
Bears fans, as I always say, keep your head up and always bear down.
We all silly like the mayor.